Okay. Hello, everybody. My name is Paul Brennan. I'm from Cardiff University. I work at Cardiff University, and Steph did a plug earlier for user groups. I've been a long-time member of the OR user group, and it's obviously it should be a bit wider, but I'm not doing anything about it right at the moment. And I've been inspired by Steph for many years. And I want to talk to you today about, sorry, is that enough?
Scared of.
You're scared of? Yeah, maybe. I want to talk to you a little bit about some of what she's inspired me to do in terms of making an app for understanding healthy habits, right? A little bit about healthy habits first, and then a bit about tech and what I've created. And I want some feedback. Either you can throw food if you want, although we probably have to clean up the mess. You maybe don't want to do that. So the aim is to develop an interactive visualization about the best healthy habit. Primarily it's about me. I'm not quite maybe the oldest person in the room, and I have 2 young children, and I'm quite keen to keep myself alive as long as possible for those 2 young girls. So that's what I'm trying to do, is find out what's best for me. But obviously there's an IT sort of help to it all, right? And the thing is that I've been doing cancer research for many years, and we know what we should be doing. We shouldn't smoke, always number one, and we'll come to we'll talk about that. We know we should be physically active. We know we should enjoy a good diet. A good diet typically involves fruit and veg. 5 a day is the refrain, or is the thing. We should refrain from red meat. I'm not going to talk about diet today. We should try and control our weight. This is mostly, the calculation here is typically a body mass index, and we shouldn't drink too much. So I'm not going to talk about drinking. I'm not going to talk about diet today because I ran out of time, and because it gets more and more complex anyway. So show me the money. I was thinking of famous quotes. I don't know. Hopefully some of you recognize that it's a bit old now. But the numbers all come from a study called epidemiology, and it's the study of large populations. And I'm going to focus on, and this is the kind of stuff that I understand. I've been studying these kinds of papers. I'm not an epidemiologist, but we study these kind of papers for quite a while. And the paper I'm going to focus on, it's a very long title: Physical Activity and All-Cause Mortality. And all-cause mortality is just a posh way of saying death. Okay? And it's a cohort study. It's a European-wide cohort study. It's a cohort study that has 300,000 people in it, over 300,000 men and women. And that's what, again, we like that. We like nice big numbers. It is the big data projects way before the term big data was even invented. Okay, these guys, the epidemiologists, have been doing it for years and years. The classic number that is pulled out of this is what's called a hazard ratio. And I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about that. The hazard ratio, there's a nice link to the definition if you want to look it up in your homework or whatever. Basically, if the hazard ratio is greater than 1, then this will reduce life expectancy of the population. If the hazard ratio is less than 1, it will increase the population. It'll increase the life of the population. And the 2 classic numbers I'm going to use as we go forward. One is smoking 20 a day. Smoking at 20 a day has a hazard ratio for a population of 2.2. Being physically active, which again is the opposite side of that, is a hazard ratio of 0.66. Unfortunately, hazard ratios are very difficult for us to get our heads around. You think, well, what does that really mean? And so one of the people that inspires me in this area is this guy, Professor David Spiegelhalter. Probably not how you say his name. Spiegelhalter, I think, who works up in Cambridge. He's the professor of risk in Cambridge University, and he's written this nice blog, which is talks about your effective age. And as part of that, there's a little calculation that we can do, that I can do, which turns a hazard ratio into a change in the number of years you're going to live. So obviously, none of this tells a story of an individual. It just tells the likelihood, right? So there's a couple of jokes about that. The best joke is about the boss, the executive who was sent off to his company for a health check, and he got a full health clearance. He was told he was going to. There's no reason why he shouldn't live, and he was so happy. He walked onto the street, and was knocked down by this. And so, none of these tell the story of an individual. It all tells the story of the population. Smoking 28 days, we can convert this hazard ratio into a reduced life expectancy of 8.3 years. Being physically active can increase your life expectancy by 2.9 years. And these numbers are kind of easier to relate to than hazard ratios per se. Or certainly I find it easier to relate to. And the sort of idea of this app, the concept of this app, is to try and look at some of the relative importance of these different healthy habits. Yep.
So if I read this right,
yep.
It doesn't really matter a huge amount if I exercise but it does naturally smoke.
Right. It's so the short answer is yes, in the sense that the absolute worst thing you can do is smoke.
You can lose a decade.
Yeah. Everything else pales into comparison to smoking. This is one of the reasons that the argument for smoking has been around for years, right? We shouldn't do it, but we still do it, but that's another story, right? So actually, but it becomes a bit more complex than that, Steph, because it very much depends on other aspects of your life, yeah? Which is what we're going to try and explore a little bit in terms of that app, right? It depends on other factors. Statisticians call these significant interactions, and for example, there's an interaction between physical activity and body mass index, and depending on your weight, the benefit you might get from going for a run will be different as well. For physical activity, is different. So the core concept, as I say, is that certain habits might be worth more added life than others, depending on your lifestyle, depending on your gender, depending on your current habits. And what I wanted to try and work out, and what I wanted to try, it's a thought experiment as much as anything else, is what was the next best habit that I should get? And the thing about healthy habits is that they're very difficult, is that when you look at the 5 habits, it becomes very scary. And so we want to try and reduce it down into something a bit easier, a bit more conceptual, easier conceptually, so that you can really make it nice and easy for yourself, a nice, easy and low target. And I'll talk to you a bit about that in a minute, right? So I like a bit of data, and the first thing I did was I started with a graph. This graph is from that paper, and what I've taken is I've taken the hazard ratios from that paper, and I've turned them into added years possible here, right? And the first thing that becomes, the figure will get a little better. If you're moderately inactive, moderately active, active, if you're a man, if you're a woman, you have different numbers, right? So this goes back to the point that you had, right? Is that I shouldn't smoke, right? Obviously you shouldn't smoke, but what else should you do? And clearly you get the most years if you're a nice active man, although you don't do too badly if you're a nice active woman. And this is all in comparison to being completely inactive. And inactive, it depends on both your job and in terms of recreation. And we'll talk about that, right? So what I've done is I've turned this graph into a Shiny app, and I've added a few other numbers into it as well. I'm going to have a look at that in RStudio for the next couple of minutes. And I'll do a demo of the app as well, if I can make everything work together. So let me just, escape from that. So escape from that. How do I get out of my, there we go. It's okay, yeah. So now I go to, so one of my colleagues was talking about what is your weapon of choice. My weapon of choice is RStudio and the language R, and that's what I use to make all these slides. This is the slides that all be made in R Markdown, so I'm doing my sales pitch for everything. I'm trying to show Steph everything I've learned working with her for 2 years, and this is R Markdown. Just for the record as well, because the other thing she taught me was these are all also on GitHub as of about 10 minutes ago, so I can use GitHub and I can use R Markdown, right? But the more exciting thing that I have also learned how to use in the last little while that I've been inspired to use is this Shiny app, right? And what the Shiny app does is you have to create 2 different parts of the Shiny app to make them work. One is called server.org. You almost certainly can't read that from anywhere. The other is called UI.org. And the server, let me just go back here. So the server downloads the data, does the calculations, the user interface or shows the data and allows the responses, and so you can make it to it and play with it, right? And this is the sort of development aspect of it. And just, there's more developers. Most of you are significantly more developers than I am. I'm really a lab rat that has got bored working in the lab and decided he wanted to do something else. And learning or has been what I decided to do, right? So I'm just going to go through the code very quickly and show you a little bit about what you have. This is in the server OR. Here we have get URL. This is getting the data. This is getting more data. This is playing with the data. This is making our graph. Okay, and then we have it playing with the data a little bit, creating different sorts of graphs. Lots of if statements and unfortunately lots of curly brackets. And I'll show you a little bit about those in a minute in terms of the demo. I spent a lot of time over the last 48 hours trying to work out various nested curly brackets and software following them, but I don't need to tell anybody who's going to develop that as well. Right, so I'm going to run the app. So you can run the app here. And this app is basically, the question is, which healthy habit should I'm going to move it over. Which healthy habit should I think about? Right? And what we have here is an opportunity. We have here, please describe yourself, and whether you're a woman or a man. And we can put in the woman, and then our graph changes to the data for the woman, which we quite like. Since most of the room is men, we're going to have men here. So again, we have our graph here, which has moderately inactive, moderately active, active, and it also has a BMI. We're beginning to understand some of the variables within what can be gained in terms of exercise, right? So I have a graph here for how many cigarettes you might smoke every day. So if you smoke 0, well done on avoiding too many cigarettes. So clearly you've scored your first habit, and you've nothing to benefit from gaining this habit, right? From changing this habit. If I change this, I can change this live, and it goes up to 10. Okay, I now smoke 5 cigarettes a day, right? Now, if you remember that 20 cigarettes a day was 8 years, took 8 years off your life. This is about 4 years. So assuming a linear relationship, 5 cigarettes on the side is about 4 years, which is basically larger than any of the benefit that you're going to get from exercise usually. So exercise could still help, but you should really try giving up smoking. Yeah. And this sort of tells you that obviously if you're up to 20 a day, which gives you which loses you nearly a decade, cutting down on cigarettes should really be the focus, right? No matter what else you do, putting down cigarettes. It also tells you that if it gives you an indication, something falling over. It also gives you an indication that if you do smoke, then you can probably gain more benefit by reducing your tobacco intake to by about 5 cigarettes than you can taking lots of running. I don't really want to suggest that, but that's certainly, there's an implication of that.
You're not that kind of doctor.
Well, I'm not. I'm absolutely not that kind of doctor. I have no medical qualification whatsoever, right? Oh, seriously, that's very important. I have to say. Big trouble today. Right? So it's a bit of fun, right? Really. So we go down to no cigarettes. Well done on avoiding too many cigarettes. And that's the reason it's the top of my app, yeah? It's because it is really the best way. If you smoke, it's the best way to improve your life, yeah? And the next one is body mass index, and so we have an opportunity here to do body mass index. There's 3 different categories over here, which you probably can't read too easily, 18.5 to 24.9. And so if we change our body mass index, and I've done a second graph down here as well, so you can change if you change your graph here, I can change, if I change my body mass index, it changes my graph, so we can focus on body mass index here. This is the aggregate data for males and females. And then if we move it up to 25, it gives us, we can change these. And so now it gives us intermediate values to focus on. And again, we can do all this by just, what we do is we create the same graph, and then we can play with the graph in different ways on the fly, yeah? And then finally, in terms of exercise, right, because there's the study of exercise looked at so the body mass index, so exercise can help maybe control your weight, and if your weight is too high, so if it's up about 35, if your body mass index is really bad, we have weight control can improve your future. And again, that's because what's happening is the effect that weight is having on your life is larger than the benefit that you would gain by any exercise, particularly because the benefit you gain from exercise goes down as your BMI goes up. Yeah, so that's another thing to think about. So then finally, just to look at job activity level. So we have sedentary, we have none. So sedentary. So what this study did is they divided our activity into various components. So one is whether your job is sedentary. Unfortunately, for most of the people in this room, it's almost certainly going to be sedentary, which isn't great. And then your physical activity per day. So that's other sort of recreational exercise and stuff like that. So you're inactive and could benefit from exercise. Yeah. And the benefit from exercising, what the great news is, you make the greatest benefit, if you're inactive, you make the greatest benefit of exercise from going from inactive to moderately active. Right? So as a man here, that's a good BMI, you can add another 2.5 years to your life just by being a bit more physically active. Unfortunately, being a bit more physically active is, it's not a huge amount. Under half an hour a day is the thing here. So you're moderately inactive and you can still benefit from exercise, but you actually move all the way into this little, if your BMI is good, you're already into this space here. And in fact, you have nothing to gain until you go all the way up here again, right? So again, if you're here as a moderately interactive individual, you probably want to look at your weight control, you probably want to look at fags, and then we'll have to get on to exercise. We have to get on to diet and drinking, which drinking is always it's always been my Achilles heel, and I can't really get away from that one, right? So but I will have to factor it in as it goes forward. In contrast, at the other end of the scale, if you are if you're a heavy manual worker, you're active. You're already in this category, so you don't need to do anymore, right? You probably need to cut down on the fags and the smoking that you're using to alleviate your body from the pain of the physical of the heavy manual activity, but that is unfortunately the case. Yeah. So the bottom line. So in terms of the technology, this is all produced at the moment from Aura Studio. But you can also then, by pressing this button up here, I'll just show you because I think this is pretty cool. You can publish it onto the shinyapps.io website, and you can produce it live. And again, I've done that. And you have, if I can open it, there we go. That's you on Twitter. So we can reload that. So this is my app on shiny.io. This is a completely free service. So we have brennant.shinyapps.io. You can host a certain number of free apps through Shiny, and so this is available to the internet. And my argument, and it works the exact same way. You smoke cigarettes, you go up your cigarettes, you can do that. Cutting down cigarettes should be your focus. So it's the same interface. You're just using it on through your browser instead, yeah. And that's upgoing. And if I go to the home page, so if I go to shiny.io, this is their website. You can sign up through. I've signed up through GitHub, and you can get a certain number of free apps with them. So these are my demos. So I've archived a couple of demos that I've did over the last couple of days. This is my app here in my account, and it's very easy to link in Aura Studio with shiny.io, shinyapps.io to make that all real. And it took about to actually launch it straight from Aura Studio. It's telling me here it's already done, so it's not going to do it again. It takes, I think, less than 5 minutes to upload all that and make a nice interactive app. And so you can go online. Okay. So to remind you, I've learned how to use Aura Studio. I've learned how to use Aura Markdown. I've learned how to create an Aura Shiny app, and I've learned how to launch that on the internet, right? And if Steph isn't pleased with me now, I don't think I can do anything. Oh yeah, no, and I've put it all in GitHub as well, right? So yeah, so it's possible.
Now you need to just remove P03 from your
Sorry?
app.
Yes, I probably do need to use free, but there's always more to do, Steph. You know that. So where is my slides gone? I don't know where my slides are gone. So I've escaped from that and knit up my slides again because it doesn't take very long. And there are my slides. Oh, they're open in my browser, aren't they? There they are, right. So I've shown you I can have it, if anybody wants to have a look at the Aura server or the user interface, or I'm very happy to do that. I've done the demo. Some sources and some inspiration just for the last 2 or 3 minutes. So it's all the paper that I used is originally from this. This is where all the graphs come from, originally from that. I had to do a bit of cut and pasting, lots of data munging, which I'm not going to talk about. This where and paper talks about the levels of activity. Professor David Spiegelhalter and his book, The Norm Chronicles, and his blog site is, again, very much the inspiration for me. That's me. Thank you for listening. Twitter, or for Biochemist, my blog. I haven't put much of this stuff on the blog yet because I only finished it at 12:30.
Just in time delivery.
Just in time. Yes. It doesn't feel agile when you're hacking away on your sofa, but anyway. And it's all on GitHub as well. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yep.
Actually, I remember listening to a guy, Peter Elwood.
Yep.
He was talking about his after the age of 50, a baby aspirin.
Yep.
Is that still correct?
Yeah. Well,
I can't remember a lot of it, so.
So the aspirin data, like again, I'm not a clinician, right?
No, that's
whereas where Elwood is, right? And so just to give you all a bit of context, because Elwood is a very inspirational local epidemiologist. and he was very involved in setting up what's called a Caerphilly study, which was a study of men in Caerphilly, and he went back and repeated the analysis from them every 10 or 20, I think they've done it for 25 or 30 years now. The data, some very interesting data from that, from those papers as well, some very nice quality epidemiology. And again, the same habits in terms of the ones that I've showed are absolutely there. The aspirin data seems quite good. My understanding when I've heard him talk is that he takes it himself, which is always reasonable proof of the pudding, I think. I'm not a big fan of extra medication or taking pills when I don't need them, but it does seem to be the sort of risk to return ratio seems quite good for a half an aspirin or a small aspirin. Yeah. I'll put it in and see. One of the things that is also a bit worrisome around the epidemiology in terms of our charity step is that mental illness is a big reduction in life expectancy. The numbers are quite scary, and they cover a wide variety of factors, but contact with psychiatric support corresponds to a reduction of about 10 years in life expectancy, which varies depending on lots of things. But and that's not all. A component of that, about 15 or 20% of that is suicide related, but a lot of it is actually related to well-being in general and taking care of yourself. So you've got a higher risk of other diseases. So that's comorbidities is a big issue as well. So. But the same thing, don't smoke instead of good time. Anybody else? The one question I was afraid of that nobody has asked me about is vaping. Because there is some evidence that it is significantly less risky than smoking, but I haven't been able to pull out the papers for that one yet. So if you are smoking, then probably going vaping instead is almost certainly a better thing to do for your health wise. And apparently has completely undermined some of the anti-smoking campaigns that have been going on. So.
Well, nicotine in itself is generally pretty harmless as an addiction, so it's everything else.
Absolutely. It's all. Sorry?
Oh, yeah.
It is, but it's not as toxic. It's not as toxic as in comparison to all the other stuff that's in tobacco. That's the point. Like both nicotine and aspirin are originally plant products, and there's some evidence that if willow water there's some evidence that willow water can work as well, and these kinds of things. But salicylic acid aspirin is originally from that. I'm not advising that either. But
I'm not 50 yet, so I
don't quite
fit into the group that can benefit from aspirin.
With any luck, it'll come.